on the ground in Ukraine today. What we're looking at now, I think, is the situation we had in 2014 after Russia achieved its initial gains. I think Russia's exhausted at the moment. It needs to recoup. The Ukrainians are very buoyant, and I liken it very much to a lower league team 2-0 up against a Premier League team. The Premier League team right now is looking for half time to regroup, refresh itself and try and come back for a better second half. And I think what we're looking at is a decided stalemate. The Ukrainians aren't really strong enough to go on to a major offensive right now. The Russians don't want to really do that either. And I think it's settling down for the winter, to tell you the truth.
Stuff. Nick, what's your take on that? I explained at the beginning that our relationship goes back to your diplomatic correspondent, but you've covered more wars than I've had hot dinners as well. What's your assessment?
It's very sinister where we are. I agree with Chris completely. Hi, Chris, again. This is a very serious development where we are now. I remember sitting here back in February and March saying this is going to be a very long haul. It is going to be a very long haul, and the former Chief of Defence Intelligence, Jim Hockenhull, four-star general, who's now head of strategic command, has said very publicly, unusually, this is going to last a very long time. At the moment, no one can win, and I agree with Chris. This is now a stalemate. Neither side can push for victory at the moment, even to the point of forcing negotiations.
Yeah.
And over time, the Ukrainians are building new capacity. More worrying is that the Russians are getting weaker. They have lost a large number of people, anything between 25 to 50,000, whether dead or injured, maybe even more, at a time when there's disillusionment within the military. They've lost 100 colonels. They've lost a dozen generals. A dozen generals. Things are not going well. It cannot be achieved by kinetic force, in other words, the hardware. And the really worrying thing for all of us 6 months on is that this is the summer when they could have made big progress. Yes. Winter is coming, and my final point, which we have to underline, the Gerasimov doctrine, the Chief of Staff, Valery Gerasimov, said in 2013, our strategy now is chaos. And that's boomeranging back onto us with gas, with electricity, with inflation, and what is happening in many countries. So this is a long haul. It's going to be very, very, very uncomfortable.
Chris ended his comment, and I'll come back to him in just a second, saying, you know, it's now the winter and as it were, an enforced pause, whether either side want it, that is the case. We know that Erdogan is really upping his game and trying to make Turkey a key player, which you've also talked about. The UN, our mutual friend Mark Seddon saying, where's the UN? They've finally emerged in quite a big way right now. Is there a parallel going on here? Is there a genuine, credible diplomatic effort to use the window that Chris just described?
No, I mean, what's quite remarkable is that the grain supplies are leaving Odessa and the southern coast still, and I'm quite surprised by that, not least the danger of mines, and Chris is a former admiral. So it's quite remarkable that's happening, and there appears to be some understanding on the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, which is also quite remarkable.
Yeah.
But I suspect the Russians are saying, actually, this is the biggest nuclear plant in Europe. We can't afford to have another Chernobyl.
So no diplomatic optimism?
There's nothing going on diplomatically at the moment.
Let's move the conversation on again then. The next thing I wanted to ask you, Chris, if I may, and you may have been kind enough to watch, but if you weren't, last weekend we had Lesia on, who's one of our regular friends, Ukrainian MP. You know her well, brilliant woman, who can handle a gun herself as well, as she's often told us with great pride. In interview with me, she said not once but twice, if the West maintains its flow of weapons and hardware, we can win. Now, you've made your point clear about that on many occasions. I'm not asking you now to say, can they win, can't they win? You've already addressed that. But I want you to interpret, if you would, and then Nick, what you think the message was that she was trying to get out through us. If the West continue its flow of weapons and hardware, we'll be on the upside.
Yes, I think Ukrainians, to keep their own morale going and to keep support going from the free world, needs to keep momentum going in the campaign, which is why you're seeing a decided propaganda and military push around Kherson at the moment. They have to keep telling people they're in the game, they're not on the back foot, and they can win. Now, I'm not sure the Ukrainians or indeed anybody knows what victory looks like in Ukraine right now. And we also don't know what the Ukrainians would settle for in peace talks. People have talked of the winter war with Finland that the Soviet Union had back back in 1939-40. Finland had to give up territory for that, but actually also had to give up its aligned status. So it had to become neutral. What does victory look like? I think is something that is a bit of a chimera at the moment. Winning for the Ukrainians is not losing, frankly, and they need to keep telling the free world that.
Let me just press you on the bit in the middle of that, and that is whether or not they can win, but the degree to which she was issuing a wake-up call. She made no criticism of the United Kingdom and the Ministry of Defence, and Nick's written eloquently recently about training on Salisbury Plain and that side of it. Are there other allies of Ukraine who are beginning to go a bit cool on the military side of the support?
Oddly enough, it's not the military side, it's the political military side. I think certain countries are pretty weak about it. And I think that the free world has to be solid here. It is absolutely the front line in Ukraine right now. So is Taiwan in the coming battle between authoritarian states and the free world. And if we allow the authoritarian states to get their way either in Ukraine or Taiwan, we will be fighting them ourselves in future. We're already on the top edge of strategic competition, and many people have said Ukraine and Taiwan are proxy wars. That's not the case yet, to tell you the truth, but we are in strategic competition, and this is an expression of that competition that we cannot afford to lose.
There is no challenge greater, if you're the Polish government, than Ukraine. But if you're the American government, he's absolutely right. These things move on. Suddenly there are other bigger, greater threats. And if you are, Lesia, the Ukrainian MP, that's deeply worrying.
These are sinister times for all of us. Everyone in Britain has to understand that we are under threat as well. When you hear that the Brits are short of ammunition, partly because they've been shifting them all to Ukraine, the real challenge now is it's all very well having Ukrainian troops training in Salisbury and in Yorkshire and so on. They will go back. There'll be an enhanced conventional capability. But the Russians see this as a threat to what they've got in eastern Ukraine. And the deeply sinister time which is approaching is that they may use theatre nuclear weapons to actually remove,
the ultimate chaos,
destroy the Ukrainian force that we are helping to create. And there is also evidence, I don't have it on first hand, that actually there's very active military support for the Ukrainians strategically and tactically. And that is going to enrage the Russians, enrage Putin. This is now something where he is prepared to extend his influence and extend his threats. He's playing this long, even if he's destroyed a large part of eastern Ukraine.
As a former admiral, Chris, and a very, very senior planner, do you take the nuclear threat seriously?
Yes, I think we always have to when there are nuclear weapons in play. The one thing that worries me, Alistair, and should worry everybody, is we've got Russia, China, Iran all talking about using nuclear weapons as war fighting, not deterrent weapons. I think my own view is there is only one circumstance where he would use nuclear weapons, and the Ukrainians have to be careful here, is if he were going to lose Crimea. The one bit of territory that I think Putin would really fight over is Ukraine. And so they have to be very careful around Kherson at the moment and the way they're dealing with Crimea, because if he lost every other inch of territory in Ukraine, the one area he would not give up, this is Putin, is the sovereign base in Sevastopol and the predominantly Russian area of Crimea. That is something I think that could cue a nuclear response if the Ukrainians either isolate or threaten to invade Crimea. I think that is the bottom line for Putin on nuclear weapon use.
Chris, great to talk to you. Thank you for breaking into your Saturday to reflect upon these matters. And you keep in touch. As you well know, you're always welcome on this programme. Final point to you, be it Crimea or the master plan. One of the first things you said when you came as a guest on this programme is that we could and should have seen this coming 2 decades ago.
2 decades ago, it was made clear by Putin in the 2007 Munich Security Conference that this is what he was planning to do. What's interesting is Jim Hockenhull, I'm quoting him again, 4-star general, said they were aware in November of precisely, and he was Chief of Defense Intelligence then, of exactly what was being planned. It was the same for the CIA. The CIA director, Bill Burns, went to Moscow and said, this is what you're going to do. But just to pick up on one particular point, this is now about stalemate. It is equivalent to what's happening between North and South Korea, and that's been going on for 50 years. And that's what's so gloomy about all of this, and it's going to affect all of us.